Well, now you're watching it.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll get started with the approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or corrections this time?
I have an update on the water tower repair.
Okay.
Under.
We can do it administrator.
Six.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to, under visitors to the council, number 4, I'd like to add Ron Carlson. Then under F, old business number 2, little discussion on the Shopko lot. That's it for me.
Okay. Lonnie?
Nope.
Doug?
Good.
Okay. All right, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as corrected.
I'll make that motion.
Troy, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Number 2, the consent agenda. Everything's in the packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dan. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. On to visitors to the council. Number 1, we have a DMC update.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Cody Pogles, and I am an employee for the DMC Economic Development Agency in Rochester. We, the DMC EDA, over the last 6 months or so, have been engaging in sort of local outreach within about 50 miles of the Rochester city, engaging with local communities, local nonprofits, trying to just spread awareness both of DMC and also provide a progress update. It has been 5 years since the passage of the DMC legislation. It's been about 3 years that DMC's been underway, 3 years as of this past April. I just have a brief update that I'd like to provide in terms of the goals of the DMC initiative, sort of its potential impact on transportation and other sort of regional initiatives, and then answer any questions that you have. There we go. The mission of the DMC initiative. The DMC was really introduced as a result of some long-range planning that was being done by the Mayo Clinic. For those of you that have lived in the area for several years, I grew up here in Casson, graduated from KM. Mayo Clinic's grown by leaps and bounds over the last 30 years. We've seen the Gonda building, the General's building at St. Mary's, the Jacobson building, Mayo Medical Labs, the Stevens building, the Stabile building, on and on and on and on and on. And as they looked forward over the next 20 or so years, Mayo realized that they were ready to do it all over again. More jobs, more research, more education, and more patient care. But what was lacking in that, in their understanding of that growth was the public infrastructure that would be needed to support the growth of Mayo Clinic, and then subsequently the residents, the patients, the visitors that would come to Rochester, to the region, over the next 20 years and beyond. The biggest piece of that was the fact that Rochester, even for its geography, it's about 3/4 the size of St. Paul, has about 1/3 of St. Paul's, or 1/4 of St. Paul's population. The tax base just wasn't there to support the kind of growth that we're talking about. So with that understanding, Mayo went to the city of Rochester, Olmsted County, the governor's office, and then into the state legislature, and in a single legislative session, passed the DMC statutes. For anybody that's ever been involved with a bonding project or anything else, one session from introduction to passage. It's a big deal. From there, the legislature empowered Mayo Clinic and the city of Rochester to form a corporation that put out a development plan. That plan's about 800 pages. It covers everything from energy and sustainability and housing to all sorts of public infrastructure and public capital improvements. And we are now currently in, as I said, the 3rd year of the implementation of that plan. The plan is built around 5 goals. The first one was to develop that comprehensive strategic plan. Then we went on to job growth, about 30,000 new jobs directly attributable to DMC. 7.5 to 8 billion in new net tax revenue for the city of Rochester, Olmsted County, and the state of Minnesota and their taxpayers. And then there's sort of the undergirding, the other piece of this is to take the 585 million in public funding and leverage that to find another 5.5 billion in private investment. And all of that really leads to the experience. So this is the experience of moving around Rochester in the region, not getting caught in traffic jams. I came from down Highway 14, there was a bad accident in Byron, and I was backed up for 40 minutes sitting in traffic this evening. But also the experience for residents that want to fly in and out of Rochester International Airport or want to live here in the community, in addition to the experience noticed by visitors and patients. As I mentioned, I'll go over here and point because it's a little easier. So there's some public funding involved in DMC. About 10% of the total investment in DMC will be public funding, $585 million spread out between state general aid, a sales tax exemption on public infrastructure projects, city funding from the city of Rochester, transit aid from the state, and a wheelage tax that Olmsted County is assessing that will total about $46 million. That makes up that green slice. The blue slice is the private money that will go into DMC. The majority of that blue portion being Mayo Clinic, about 3.5 of the 5.6 billion. Please, if you have questions, feel free to stop me. With that understanding that we're looking at about a 10-to-1 public to private or private to public funding, this is how we've broken out to date over the last 3 years. About 12% of the funding that's gone towards DMC has been public, mostly city tax dollars for Rochester. The other 88% has been private funding. What that's gotten us is when we put together the DMC development plan, we did some phased projections of economic development. The darker green is the first 5-year phase, which is 2015 to 2020. The lighter green is 2020 to 2025. And the blue is what we've actually, construction dollars actually in the ground as of the end of 2017. So you can see that in sub-segments, like apartments, we're past what we should be at in 2020. We're getting close in hotels, so on and so forth. So that as you drive around Rochester, even around downtown, you'll see 7 or 8 cranes in the air right now. And it's, this sort of reflects how quickly the markets responded just to the idea of DMC. That next goal of the DMC development plan was job growth. And what we can see here is, with the exception of a drop from 2013 to 2014, there's more than 1,000 jobs a year being added just in the city of Rochester. Regionally, of course, it's more than that. The biggest growth over the last 5 years has been in the construction industry, just with all of the building that's been going on. Teresa mentioned on the phone with me yesterday that there's something like 50 new houses being built per year here in Casson. So it's an effect that's being felt throughout southeast Minnesota. As I mentioned, there's that fourth goal of raising 7.5 to 8 billion in new net tax revenue. That's over a 35-year period. But during the 20 years of the actual DMC initiative, we're expecting 2.4 to 2.7 billion, and then the remaining 15 years as TIF districts wear off, as all of the office buildings and research buildings that are built become fully occupied, and property taxes go up and payroll taxes go up, income taxes go up, that extra revenue will be generated. As of right now, within the DMC plan, the DMCC board, which is a mix of gubernatorial appointees, county appointees, city appointees, and a Mayo Clinic representative, there are 3 goals. So the first one is what we call Heart of the City. What the graphic shows is the area that's currently Peace Plaza. So the Chateau's right here, the Gonda and Mayo buildings are over here, and this is First Avenue. The second one is Discovery Square. Right now there's a building being built by Mortensen Construction that's going where this rendered image is. And this final one, not a great image, but it's of sort of the transportation initiative overall in downtown Rochester. These 3 things really highlight sort of the philosophy that we've taken from this, which is that you can take a very immediate need which is having really, really great public space to draw in new talent, to draw in patients, to create an experience for people. For anybody that's ever been to Thursdays on First and Third, this is where that happens, and the idea is to replicate that more days of the week and around the year. The second one that just has a really long lead time is Discovery Square. This is really the economic engine for DMC. This is where Mayo Clinic, which does about $1 billion in education and research every year, where other companies, both large and small, and local entrepreneurs and startups, can get in on the ground with Mayo Clinic, collaborate with them, have space next to them, and really interact with them. The Mortensen building that's going to go at that block where it was called the Translational Cloud, where that cloud would be, it's 4 stories. Mayo will be on 3 of them, so that Mayo's sort of forcing itself to interact with the other tenants and share what it knows. And then transportation, at the heart of DMC, this is really about, as I mentioned at the top, the infrastructure needed to sustain the growth of Rochester and the region. So transportation, it's, there's finding a perfect solution for that is always tricky. When I still lived here in Casson in the summer of 2014, and I was commuting every day to RCTC to work, half my drive would be from RCTC back to Barlow Plaza, and then on 14, with the exception of days like today, the other half was 13 miles. So it was like a 4 and 13. It was just stoplight after stoplight, car after car. And there needs to be a way to solve for that within the existing footprint of the downtown area in Rochester, with the recognition that we're going to be adding tens of thousands of new jobs and downtown residents. So starting that early, prioritizing it early, and hoping to have a solution. We've been engaged with a consulting group, SRF Consulting, out of the Twin Cities for a couple of years now, working on transportation. This is a map. The DMC initiative is broken out into 6 sub-districts. Soldiers Field down here on the bottom, Civic Center Drive and North Broadway at the top, Mayo Park where the Honkers play, and the Civic Center over here to the east, and then to the west it sort of stretches all the way over to Highway 52 down 2nd Street. So DMC is geographically confined to this particular area of downtown Rochester and its 6 sub-districts. There are 22 projects in the works right now in downtown Rochester, either completed, from completed all the way back to just being in development. Together, these projects total about $664 million in value. Some of these projects, these are the public space projects that will be included with this initial phasing of the DMC initiative. A renovation of the Chateau Theater, the heart of the city, just to give you some perspective on what that image is. There's a skyway that connects the Kaler Grand on the left and the Marriott on the right. The idea would be that there could be an outdoor patio off of that skyway, so that's sort of what that rendering shows you. St. Mary's Place, the area around St. Mary's, the Canadian Honker, and now where the Berkman building, the new Lattice 350-unit apartment building will go. For large parts of the year it's unwalkable, and even from downtown it feels like it's a long ways away, even though it's only about a 10-minute walk. But it's about remaking that public space to make it more pedestrian-friendly, more retail-friendly, and to sort of create more of an investment opportunity for small businesses, for office buildings, and for residential buildings. And then Discovery Walk, this is the space, so as you exit the Mayo building and the Plummer building onto Annenberg Plaza, you can look south, and 6 blocks away is Soldiers Field, but walking there is not a great experience. But there's an opportunity again, by reimagining this, what's actually a road now, you create opportunities for investment on either side of that right-of-way, so that private businesses can come in, private developers can come in and develop along that corridor, make it more pedestrian-friendly, offer more amenities. This is just to give you some idea of some of the developments that are going on. The one on the upper left, that will be where the current American Legion is, on Civic Center Drive and First Avenue. Directly north of that is First Avenue Flats. The Lattice building, that's the one immediately west of St. Mary's. They are under construction right now. The Titan Hilton, next to Broadway Plaza on Broadway, also under construction. Lost at Mayo Park, completed. That's just east of the Civic Center across the Zumbro. And Flats on 4th. Where Buckeye Liquor used to be, sort of by the subway across from the Government Center in Rochester, that is also completed, and they are leasing apartments now. Discovery Square. So Discovery Square, again, it's the economic engine of DMC. The idea is really to create sort of a live, work, play environment within Discovery Square. There are already examples of that. The Conley Moss Downs building, it was a camera factory, a plumbing factory, now has a ground floor restaurant and co-working space on the top floor. That was privately developed, and they use some historic tax credits as well. The Titan Opus building, a residential building between First Avenue and Broadway on 5th Street. And the Mortensen building, the first bioscience building in Discovery Square, is, as you can see, under construction right now. Transportation. So transportation, with SRF, the City of Rochester, Olmsted County, and the DMC EDA, we are looking at 4 different studies. One of them is street use, so finding ways to incorporate alternate modes of transportation, but also make sure we're being most effective with that public right-of-way. A transportation management authority or association, authority is probably too harsh of a word, but the TMA would be the one that sort of manages how do, for example, I now live on the northwest side of Rochester up on Menards. If I only wanted to drive as close to downtown as, say, Barlow Plaza or even west of there, at 22 West Circle Drive and 14, could I park there, and would there be a public transit system that could get me downtown reliably, back to my car reliably, in time for soccer practice or in time to get home to make dinner, any of that. But also then just to manage the parking space and the other parking infrastructure that exists downtown. A downtown transit circulator, this could take multiple modes, but the one that we've sort of settled on is a bus rapid transit system, again to move people at various times throughout the day to sort of manage demand from the St. Mary's area in the west side of downtown back to the downtown core, to the Civic Center, to the eventual University of Minnesota campus. And then City Loop, this is about tying the downtown area into the larger regional trail network that can be used by walkers, bikers, anyone else that's not in a vehicle. The summary of this. So again, why are we doing this? We're doing this because every community in southeast Minnesota will be affected by the growth that's experienced most directly in Rochester. Just in the past few years, you yourselves have seen a new library, in addition and renovation of the high school, not that long ago, a new middle school, and when I was in first grade, a new elementary school. So it's been nothing but growth, and for many communities, Byron, St. Charles, Casson, well-managed growth, because with plans like this, or with your comp plan, which kudos to you for having one in 2011 and now doing it again, because managing this sort of growth strategically is what DMC is about, but we've seen in the surrounding communities that there's now a name, there's something to look at, there's pretty pictures, but there's also a recognition that this community's been doing it for a long time and doing it well. And we, of course, if I go back, not that far, it doesn't like me. I will leave behind, both for everyone here, some pamphlets and some business cards about DMC. We welcome to other nonprofit groups. We welcome the opportunity to give presentations, to provide an update. Do you have any questions, Mayor, council members? Anything about it? Well, I appreciate the opportunity again. Thanks and congratulations on your own comp plan. It came along a little faster than the City of Rochester's. Their last one was done in 1973, so good for you, but again, thanks. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And number 2, the Small Cities Development Program.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Buffy Baranek. I'm the Deputy Director for Centra. And with me I have Karen Ducharme, who's our Community Development Director. Maybe just a really quick introduction. I'm going to turn things over to Karen Ducharme. Centra is the Southeastern Minnesota HRA. We operate in Dodge, Wabasha, Winona, and Goodhue counties. And then by contract in Houston and Fillmore for our Section 8 program. We have 3 core functions, and I'm only going to talk about one of those here tonight. We do housing, rental housing, Section 8, rental assistance, market rate housing for elderly, and we also have rental assistance like the Section 8 program where it's not our own property, but we provide rental assistance. And the third thing we do is community development, and that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Community development has several functions as well. We can do TIF districts, housing TIF districts. We can do housing rehab, commercial rehab, and rental rehab, which is the main reason why I'm here tonight to talk about that with Karen. we met after doing some research on the city of Casson, and we found that there hasn't been a small cities grant written for the city of Casson for 9 to 10 years, and it's about time. You've got a lot of exciting things happening here, and we feel that we could write a very competitive grant for you. We would be administering that grant on your behalf. So we met with the city administrator and the EDA director last week, and the next step is to bring this forward to you, talk about that program, the process, the program guidelines, and then the desired outcome. I don't want to jump right to the end, but I do really feel very confident that we could write about $1 million grant and get that funded for the city of Casson. I want to be very upfront, very transparent. These grants are very competitive. It takes a long time. I'm here tonight, and I won't be back for another 2 years to say to you, we have been funded. It's a long process. There's a survey process, and Karen's going to take you through that. The process of writing these grants is very competitive. You need to show need, you need to show leverage. As part of that leverage, they like to see county support. That's my job, is to talk to the county and ask for a letter of support. I understand they do a lot of stuff here for the city of Casson. And then also city support. The HRA will also levy some dollars towards writing this grant as well. We will be asking, if we are funded for this grant, $10,000 as leverage for this. So it would be a return on investment of $1 million for a $10,000 city investment. We are not, if this grant is not funded, we're not going to ask you for anything. It's only if the grant is funded. I want to be very transparent. So when we're asking you tonight to agree to a resolution of the city and the HRA partnering together, part of that partnering would be asking for funds in the future if we go forward and write that grant on your behalf. So I'm going to turn it over now to Karen to talk about the process, the program guidelines, and then the outcome.
Thank you. Very good.
Good evening. Thank you for having us, and thank you, Teresa, for your time last week and again tonight. Again, our request tonight is approval of a resolution to be partners, the city and Centra, to move ahead with a survey and in anticipation of submitting a preliminary proposal to the state of Minnesota's Small Cities Development Program. Along with that is that $10,000 commitment from the city. Just to talk about that quickly, that $10,000, we wouldn't formalize that commitment until we submit the full application. I'll talk about the process a little bit more. And that we allow time for the city to budget for that as well. So if the grant is funded as a 30-month grant, that the city would be invoiced for that $10,000 in the second year of the grant. So we have a little bit of time. The grant process takes about a year's worth of work. So if we're starting now in anticipation of being funded in 2019, it takes that amount of time to get a competitive app pulled together. So hopefully we're back here this time next year saying we got the money if everything goes right. So the process initially to get started is we meet with city staff. We're doing the second step tonight, getting council approval to move ahead with a paper survey. So we're developing that interest, getting some of the need from the homeowners of what they have need, and then their eligibility, because each activity must meet a federal objective. And then part of the paper survey, we also do a windshield survey, so we go around town and document the conditions of the properties as part of that process. And then we tally those results, we layer the two surveys, we develop a targeted area, and then we come back with our recommendations to the council in preparation for a preliminary proposal, which would be due in November of this year. The state ranks those applications, and then in December they get a ranking. If we get a marginally competitive or competitive ranking, we're invited to submit a full application in February of next year, and then funding is usually announced May, June timeframe, and hopefully by October we're starting projects by the time we get through all the federal requirements. So these are federal funds, so Any questions on the initial process? So as part of the full application, we would ask for that formal $10,000. We would formalize that commitment in the form of a resolution at that time, and that would be an attachment in the full application. Regarding the program guidelines, so the most common activities are housing, owner-occupied housing, rental housing, and commercial rehabilitation. So on the owner-occupied, eligible property owners must meet income qualifications, so they have to be at 80% of the county median income and below. And they can get up to $25,000 to do necessary improvements to their home. That $25,000 is a 10-year deferred forgivable loan, so if they own their house for 10 full years, the loan is forgiven at the end of the 10th year. If they sell it any time in that 10 years, they may have a repayment requirement that is 100%, or there's a deferment after 6 years. So it differs down at the end of the 6th year by 20% each year. So it's a really good way for people to make necessary improvements. So if they want to do cabinet replacement, we don't do that unless we have an issue with a safety issue with cabinets or something like that. So it's really based on what we see when we do an inspection. The rental housing, that is a 10-year deferred loan, so the property owner must keep it affordable and to rent to those at the county median income or below. So 51% of the units must meet those requirements, and that is a 10-year deferred loan. There's no forgiveness, deferment on that. It just is 10 years, and it's forgiven at the end of the 10 years. So they can get 70% of the project costs paid through the program, and they are required to come up with 30% on that. And then on the commercial, it's a multifaceted. So 65% of the total project cost would be a 5-year deferred forgivable loan. So if they keep the commercial property for 5 full years, it's forgiven at the end of the 5th year. They don't necessarily say they are operating a business and then the business closes. As long as they retain ownership for the 5 full years, it's forgiven at the end of the 5th year. 15% is a low interest loan that comes from the Small Cities program, but is repaid, so it automatically generates a revolving loan fund for the city. And then the remaining 20% is an owner's match. So they can get up to 80% of the project cost through the program, and they can get up to a maximum of $40,000 for that. So those are the program requirements. Our purpose for tonight is to get approval of the resolution. Once we have your approval, we'll start the survey process. Is there any questions on our program?
Yep, and this is for rehab only,
Yep.
right? There's no new construction for somebody wanting to put up a
Right.
a rental building.
Right.
It's only for rehab.
Yep.
Okay.
So if it's granted,
Mhm.
funds come from the state,
Mhm.
who manages the funds and who approves the projects?
So we would manage the project on the city's behalf. So it's the city's grant, and there's a grant agreement between the state and the city, and then there's an administrative contract between the city and Centra.
Okay, so you manage the funds,
Yep.
you approve the projects.
Yep.
What if all the money isn't used?
I hope we don't have that problem.
But what if
But
it is?
if that is the case, it does go back to the state.
There's a time limit on that? How-
It's 30 months. So as part of the surveying process, we're generating that interest, so we have people ready to go for that. And we're basing our request based on that interest level too.
So, just the survey process, you'll drive around town, if you see a property that looks like it could use some fixing up, do you go talk to them then?
No.
Knock on the door? Or
No,
how do
we
you-
don't, we do the windshield survey and document the physical conditions, because we have to use that data to base, where our targeted areas are gonna be. So we have to document that need and interest.
So they actually have to come to you to request
Right.
the funds?
Right. And we do outreach through our survey process. You know, there's about a year's time frame in here, property sell, you know, we look at all that too. We do outreach between the survey and then when it's funded to see if any of the properties are sold.
Is there anything on property being owned before this starts, or can someone buy a piece of property halfway through this and?
So I think if you're asking if somebody came into and bought a commercial property and, we had, you know, we were in this process but didn't own it and then we were funded, yes, they could. There's no requirement for how long they've had to own it.
So they could own it in the 29th month of the program and apply for the...
Yeah, logistically that wouldn't work because of the...
Time frame,
Yeah, right,
but-
but yes, yeah. They don't have to have like, they've owned it for a year or anything like that.
So it could be...
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just was wondering.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I'm answering your question.
So it could be used as an incentive for somebody to buy a multi-unit housing
Yep.
that's already there, that
Right.
needs some fixing up, and this is part of it, okay.
So, there are a couple important points that I just wanna touch on. So one is that, surveys are required and hopefully 51% of the folks surveyed will respond. Those surveys are completely confidential. No one at the city will have any of that information available to them, and that's why we would use SEMCRA to administer the project. So we won't know anyone's income, we won't know what projects they need to have done. That's all between them and the project administrator, so nobody needs to worry that somehow someone in the city is gonna know their situation. That's not how the project works. And then, the scary word blight.
Yes, so the targeted area for the commercial is defined as slum and blight, and it sounds horrible, but it's really just the state's definition of the targeted area. It doesn't mean the area is blighted, it's just, that is what they label the commercial target area. So one condition on a commercial property that needs to be fixed is called, you know, we classify that building as substandard. So we're not classifying properties as slum and blight, we're classifying them as substandard or standard. And the area in which we target the commercial rehab activity is called the slum and blight target area. So just, I wanna...
So you might hear a scary word, but it's government speak.
Yeah.
So if we would approve this, and you put this thing together and submitted it to the state, but we're turned down, we're not obligated to pay the $10,000?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to be sure.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
No, What,
I mean,
can
for
I
$1
ask-
million could be put in the community for $10,000 investment from us.
Can
you
I
know,
ask
potentially.
one more question?
Sure.
Okay, say this all goes through, the state approves it, you get your money, you get some people that apply for it. Do you check to make sure that it is actually done, or do they not
Yeah,
get the
oh,
money
yes, yes.
until it is completed?
We actually walk through the project basically holding their hand. So we work with them to do the income qualifications. We go out and inspect the property because there's certain requirements for that. We obtain all the bids. We don't even have the homeowners send out the stuff to the contractors anymore. We do that directly. The homeowners obviously get input onto what's getting done with their property, but there are certain things that have to be in their property after the rehab is done, like smoke detectors is a common thing. It must meet housing quality standards after the rehab, so we have to certify all that. We pay the contractors and the homeowner sign it off before we pay them, so we're ensuring that all that work is being done.
Okay, just
So
asking.
that's just kind of the project, or the individual file process in a nutshell.
I've actually done a few of these projects through you guys.
Okay.
And they're got their nuts and bolts tight on this stuff. I mean, the forms you fill out just to be a contractor to do the work for these guys are lengthy. And when it's very well spelled out, you don't have much interaction with the homeowner besides seeing what they've designated that needs to be fixed. And when you're done, they come in and it's gotta be done to their standards or you don't get paid, and then everything's signed off on it, so. When I did it, some of them was a pretty good program. It was quite a long time ago, that I did 20-some years ago or whatever, but it was good back then, same outfit.
All of our files are subject to audit, so we have a consistent process for all files, which does.
Okay, any other questions? Appreciate the information.
Okay.
We've got this on, our new business number 1 to discuss the resolution and approval of that, so.
Okay. Yep.
We'll tackle that then,
All
but
right.
yeah, appreciate the
Thank you.
information very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 3, Gary Dorschner.
Hi, I'm Gary Dorschner, and I'm here to come in some bad luck. I've got an eye disease, and I have lost my privilege to drive on the roadways, and I'm here to ask for a special permit, which, you know, the Minnesota state statute says that you're allowed to maybe give me a permit to drive a golf cart or ATV, you know, in the local town or county. You know, it says I need to require a physician's statement that, you know, he thinks that I'm capable of driving, and, which that I have. You know, he has it down, he thinks I should have been able to drive a car with some extra mirrors and stuff, but the state, looking at that there, says, you know, at the speeds of the highway and stuff, I've lost my peripheral vision in one eye. But, you know, they said you know, golf carts and stuff, but that's up to cities' ordinances and stuff. So that's what I'm here for, is to see if you could grant me a special permit to be able to operate a golf cart or a ATV is what I'd like to get, you know, just to get myself out to the country and to the farm and stuff.
Okay, all right, we'll take this up on our
Okay.
business. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Number 4, Ron Carlson.
Well, as you guys probably know, I talked to Shopko on access to the lot I purchased from you guys, and at first, Ben was going along with everything, and it seemed like it was gonna work out, but he, wasn't getting back to me, and I finally got a hold of him, and he just doesn't want any development on the front of those lots. He's not willing to give access. He thinks it's gonna block his view, and, they're gonna lose business. You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think you'd want traffic, you'd want people coming there, you'd want people to go get cards and stuff, so I wanted to update you on that. And, I know Teresa and Brandon and I are gonna meet tomorrow, but I wanna talk to you guys about access off of 4th Street. I've got a plan here I'd like to show you, and, to start, to see if it'd be, I guess, something to start with, to see if you guys would agree to that.
We can review that with you tomorrow, Ron. We'll review that site plan with you tomorrow, and David Martin is going to join us.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the 4 of us will sit down and take a look at that.
You know, sometimes I get a little confused on what I should do next.
We can take a
also-
look at it, but we can't approve anything tonight.
Okay, well,
I mean, we
let
can
me
take-
just show you,
yeah,
and you
I mean,
have
we can
something
take
to
a look
think
at it.
about, and
We'll take a look at it, but there's nothing we can really do. I mean,
Right, and I think that's kind of the whole intention why you want to be a visitor council, is to
Yeah.
show everybody what his idea was. There's no
yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, I don't know if
on
you've,
it, voting
if
on it.
you've seen the building that I wanna propose.
yeah,
You've
the
seen
EDA
that?
meeting, Yep.
I haven't.
No. A little over 3,100 square feet. You got one?
Probably do it.
3,100 round, and that's still a two-phase deal then?
Right,
Okay.
yeah. Now, the other building, because of lot size and stuff and different issues, the other one will not be that big. I'm thinking probably, it depends how it all lays out, zoning and everything. Could be anywhere from 2,000 to 2,800 maybe. square feet, so it won't be as big as that one. But I would make them both the same. I guess if you'd like to see it, I guess I'd like to see access and kinda how I'd like to get into the parking and just show you guys.
Can you show us anything about it? Yeah.
I guess tomorrow, I hope we can get some answers and stuff, Brandon, on access, or I think there's some drainage issues or something that might come up, or,
Yep, all things we can talk about tomorrow.
Okay.
Just wrote on a couple of quick concerns, there's some floodplain there, but I think that we can work through that, that might just be some documentation for the floodplain. The stormwater, the zoning, I think that everybody's aware of, and then also the entrance, would be a consideration, something we can talk about tomorrow, so. Those are a couple of the items that, Teresa mentioned David Martin from Massey Engineering, had talked to me earlier today, and said that he's gonna join us tomorrow in our meeting to start hammering out the site plan, so. Just some concerns or items we'll have to work through, and I think the entrance is the big one, but at the end of the day, we can start working that through and, seeing what MinDOT says or, what their concerns may be, so.
just when you get back to that floodplain issues, you know, where my buildings are gonna be when I shot it, I'm gonna be about 1.5 to 2 feet higher than where the water would go over the road. I'd be a little over 1 foot or so higher than Hardware Hank, and probably almost 2 foot higher than Shopko.
So I think at the end of the day, I don't have a concern necessarily, I think we can all work through it, it's just gonna be some documentation for more of a, almost your protection too, from flood insurance and whatnot, so.
Sure.
It's something that we're just gonna have to work through, and David can take that, and take it run with it, if you will, to get the documentation together for you and, protect yourself from, the flood insurance that you may need, keeping out of the floodplain, so.
Is Shopko in a floodplain, do you know?
Well, Brandon was reviewing, I took the plans to Brandon on Monday, so he's reviewing that, and we'll have that information for you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, I just hope you understand, I just like to get going and trying to figure this out, and I guess we'll go from there.
Okay?
So when we meet tomorrow then,
Yeah.
Teresa, we'll shoot around some ideas, and then do I come back and talk to the council then?
No, we'll just proceed then with, your building permit application once your site and grading plan are approved.
Okay, when does the rezoning take place? We talk about that?
You could do it anytime, but I took it from what you indicated to me that you wanted to make sure you were a go before you spent the money.
You know, that makes sense to me,
Yeah,
is, you know,
so
I
that's
mean,
fine. Yep, and we can talk more about it
okay,
tomorrow.
all right,
Yep.
all right, that's all I have,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all for visitors. Public forum, I don't have any cards. No public hearings, no committee reports. On to old business number, F number 1. Does that require a motion?
Well, this would be, if you would select to release that, check from last time. So there was a check in your, payables at your last meeting from the city to the, Casson Fire Relief Association. If you wanna continue with that transfer, you can do that. If you would prefer that it be a check directly from the city towards the, expense that they indicated, you could do that. So potentially there's a motion. If you don't wanna take any action whatsoever, that's why I put potential motion. But there was that receipt, that was their payable from the last meeting for which you requested a letter. And this is the letter, so that's why it says potential motion.
Actually, I requested the letter, and this isn't the letter that I requested, this is dated 4/26/2018. I requested the letter that came initially with the check.
there was no letter initially with the check.
They just threw a check in the mail and said, here you go?
Yep, that's usually how it comes. Yep.
And it came to the city of Casson.
Mhm. Yes, they're a charitable gambling organization.
They do it to more than just Casson, right?
That's my understanding. I mean, I haven't
Well,
really
that's
gotten
kind of
into
really
that,
beyond the
to
point
what
of what
they
I'm
do.
getting at, and I want to open up more discussion where their gambling money goes to. I'm guessing to the point is that this was donated to the city of Casson, and I think that it, my opinion is that it should be in the city of Casson's checkbook to go for firefighter equipment for safety. Not for something that was denied almost a year ago, or a year ago.
Well, I kinda wonder if it should be in the general fund after the, $6,000 that was already spent on it with the
Right.
one that we didn't know how got in the consent agenda.
One that got snuck in, you mean?
Well, that's
I'll say it.
about the
Right
same amount
there.
of money.
$6,759.54.
I thought we were gonna get some explanations on this whole thing, and nothing's ever come back here. I mean, the
No.
whole request was denied to begin with, and was supposed to ask for something at budget time, and we've never heard nothing about anything on it, and now here this comes across here, so we're trying to talk about it.
Kinda convenient all of a sudden too, that would happen to be going for, you know, I don't know, not safety gear, let me put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, what do we do if they wanna designate the money to something particular? We go back to the Dover Fire Department and say, we don't want your money?
Well, it says intended to be used for additional items for the Casson Fire Department. I think safety comes first. Cocktail garb doesn't really, to me, I wouldn't think that that is what something that they're really thinking that their money should go for.
I guess the biggest thing is, a year ago, when they came and asked for this, and they were told to come back at budget time, but someone turned right around and kicked us in the shin and ordered it the week after that, apparently, or that week, because by June, they were on Facebook wearing some of them. That's just the kick in the shin I got out of the whole thing. And I think some others felt the same way.
Well, plus we were never presented with a bill until
No,
months.
a year later, so now the city's been delinquent on something somewhere for a long time here, so we don't know, we don't see nothing of it, here a little bit here and there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the city already, like I just said, city already got hooked for $6,759.54 that they were told, we have other issues that the money needs to go to. And come back at budget time, come up with what you got. Do you have any money elsewhere? Can you raise the money for them? And then went out and ordered them, or already had them ordered. I mean, I've been in contact with Aspen Mills. They won't talk to me anymore, so someone's talked to them and told them not to talk to me. So, trust me, I'm not up here just blowing smoke, but anyways, if this money is to go anywhere, it's gonna go to reverse what the city of Casson's people basically got screwed on. Unless someone else wants to condone what they did and say it's perfectly fine to, take the city's money and spend it on whatever they want, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people in these departments that would like to do the same thing.
Well, I think that's what you're telling the other departments. It doesn't make any
I
difference what the
agree.
council tells you, just go
Do what you
sign it
want.
and they'll pay it. I guess I don't see another department pulling anything like that.
No, and I've asked the other department heads on protocol, and like I said, unless you guys wanna go ahead and say it's perfectly fine to do whatever you want. I mean, if this wouldn't have gotten slipped in, the first $6,700 in my eyes is stealing from the city. Plain and simple.
I think you're pushing it just a little bit.
No, if I-
But, can I ask a
Yep.
question?
Mhm.
If we give this, submit this to the fire department, can it be stipulated that it does not go for paying for the uniforms?
So the way that the check was written, it was written to the Casson Fire Relief Association. It would be spent upon approval of the board of the Fire Relief Association, so that is a good question.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
And what is the Relief Association supposed to spend their money on?
Actually, they have a general fund. They can use that for just about anything, actually.
I mean,
use
aren't
it
they
to pay
supposed to
for
be
their dinner and-
controlling their retirement funds and all that other
That's
stuff?
not their retirement money. They have a general fund checking account.
Well, this doesn't say it has to go in a general fund. I mean, this could be put in there and put towards their retirement.
Oh, the check that was written could be approved, or no check could be approved. Or a check could be written in a different manner. The check that was written to the Casson Fire Relief Association. They could choose, their officers could choose to deposit that in their general fund checking account, and they could choose how to spend that money.
Themselves.
Yeah, we couldn't tell the relief how to,
Right.
what to do.
Right.
Well, then I guess, the way I look at it is I would make a motion to, return that check to the Dover Firefighters Relief Association. And if they would, hold on, if they would like to resubmit it for safety equipment to be used for the fire department, let Lonnie tag on.
Well, I just want
I think Nancy wants to put.
I don't think the check was, from Dover was made to the Relief Association.
The donations for gambling funds have to come to the
Right,
city.
the check from
So
them
not
was made to
just
the city.
Dover, but any others come to the
Right.
city. And sometimes it kind of comes earmarked, but it's up to council as to what they want to do with it. That's the bottom line.
So the
It's
check that
received by the
Teresa's-
city, and we can't send it back because they have to share it with the communities
Okay.
that they collect it from.
But the check that you're talking about is the one that was in the last month's payables that was made to the Relief Association.
Right.
The check from Dover was made to the city of Casson.
Exactly.
Right, so.
Yep. And that was the resolution I brought in.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the check from Dover was made to the city of Casson.
Yes, because that's the
The check
only way they
that you
can-
made out was to the Casson Fire Relief Fund. So
Yep.
there's two checks we're talking about.
Yes.
So, if I understand it right, the check from Dover went to the city of Casson.
Right.
We don't have to forward that to the Casson Relief Fund.
No. No.
Done deal.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's
City of
worded that
Castle.
way, but I didn't quite get that from before.
I'm just,
Thank you.
Right. Right.
What I got before was they had sent it, like they.
That's
have
what
to,
I thought, too.
with the intention that it would go there. but
Right.
they didn't put any-
That was the innuendo I got.
Right.
Well, in a sense it did, because of the one that we already, paid on that,
well, I think,
with a misunderstanding.
I think the assumption would be one fire department giving it to another fire department. But I guess if they have no issue, why can't we put it toward the future fire engine or something like that we are supposed to be saving money for?
I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just saying that the idea was.
How about
I think
on
it's
the, on the
covered so
notes, the
fast.
ones on that we've got?
There we go. Why can't we use it to pay some debt of the fire departments?
Yeah, there's no reason, there
can't
would be
pay
no
that
reason.
problem.
You couldn't.
Okay, but we could save it with the
Well,
money
I'm
that's
just saying-
supposed to be saved,
Right.
Right.
correct?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, or put it in the, for when they need the equipment, we've got some, instead of having to come.
Okay,
Or a couple
Use it
garage
appropriately.
doors, from what I heard.
Hmm?
Or a couple garage doors, from what I heard.
To just let that check die, we don't need to do anything? Or
No,
we need to say
because
we'll-
you did not approve it. It
So it's
has
just
not
not-
been approved,
so there's no
so it
resolution.
will not be sent. Right.
No motion.
Withdraw.
Withdraw. We are recording, right?
I checked it a few times.
The screen's gone.
What do you have that you can see? You have a light over there?
Well, we're
No, I
looking
have
at
a-
the
I have a
button to
button.
see if
Oh.
the button's pushed in.
The screen went dark
and
in the
then
other room. I can't see
We
that.
were looking at the screen in the other room for a while too, to make sure it was on.
But we made
I
sure
know,
there's
we're just
nothing
like-
around the
They
button
both looked
tonight,
over
though,
here.
it's not-
Yeah, like,
Okay,
I wanna
any other
know where it's
discussion?
at, too.
No, good, thanks, Mark.
Good?
Good.
Good.
Number 2, Shopko lot.
Just a couple of quick questions, I don't think I'll go attorney-client privilege anything, so Melanie, if for some reason I say something stupid, just reach over and slap me from over there. Is the deal done with Ron, is it done, signed, sealed, and delivered?
Yes.
Okay. The floodplain, Brandon, you touched on this a little bit, about some drawings or whatever with the floodplain that you have. Did you and I talked about, is there anything existing from when the Shopko plans were done? Have you found anything, or?
Yes and no, I don't see that as a hang-up to the property, it's just, more of an action that Mr. Carlson's gonna have to partake with his engineer to get the proper documentation in place.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yep.
I'd get into it more, but it takes a lot more explanation, and I'm not worried about the floodplain at this point, how's that sound? This is more of a documentation point.
You know, to the elevation,
It's been graded, but it hasn't been mapped properly, and then it becomes a insurance issue, because the insurance will look at the map and say, well, that property looks like it's in the floodplain based on the maps. Are you actually in or out of the floodplain? So that's where an elevation certificate would have to be done after the building's built. This is a potential if the purchaser, developer has a mortgage against the property where they don't wanna give a mortgage because he's in the floodplain. He can do the elevation certificate, send that into FEMA, then get his, certificate of not being in the floodplain to not have flood insurance. That's the longer story of it, but I think it's already been graded out of the floodplain at the end of the day. So I don't see it being as a fatal flaw in the plan, I guess.
Is that something, though, that can be in the works while he's doing this? So
Oh,
that-
for sure, yep.
Okay.
We actually can't do that till after the
I
fact
think
anyway.
that's what's frustrating Ron so much, is he's at a standstill. You know, if something can be going on as he's going.
We're gonna I feel we're gonna hammer this all out tomorrow morning with
Good.
with his
Good.
engineers that he's bringing forward. I think that was the message maybe that he didn't hear or hadn't taken that action, but
Yeah,
I understand chicken or the egg and spend money to have a fatal flaw in the plan, so I don't see the floodplain being an issue.
Is that part of the deal that the floodplain map hasn't been updated?
Yes and no, I'm not sure it was updated when Shopko came
No,
through
I
and
don't
graded.
think it was.
A little bit of a problem, I think, but again, we can work through that. And then our revised floodplain mapping could be, an issue. And again, I don't think that that's gonna be an issue. Again, it goes back to, I don't think it's a fatal flaw in the plan. It's just some documentation that we're gonna have to work through, so.
Correct.
Okay, one last question, I forget, it's just, you know, on the north side of Shopko's parking lot, how far do they own to the creek? Is there any part of that left to the cities?
No, they own, to the north bank, I'll call it, of the creek, so right behind the, other structures, actually almost right to the car wash property and to the fences. Actually, it looks like the Train a Child or their house there, or maybe a Clement, property there. Looks like some of their fences actually, and their fire pit is on Shopko property, so Shopko owns the north side of the stream bank, I'll call it, of Master Creek, so.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
On G, new business resolution declaring city as a SCDP applicant.
Small Cities Development Project.
Thank you.
Yep.
This was the presentation we heard just a little bit ago. Personally, I don't see any problem with that as far as if we were successful in getting that grant money to the city of Casson for people to take advantage of it. It'd be a good investment by the city for the people who want to take advantage of it. And if they do the survey and find out there's not enough people who want to take advantage of it,
We're not out anything.
we're not out anything. So
Right.
they're doing all the work for us, and at the end of the day, EDA or somehow we'll have to budget as we look at budget time, but in case we're successful to do it over a 2-year period of time or something, where we find it somewhere.
Put it in your, yeah.
The worst that could happen, a lot of people could get help.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's huge improvement for the city for a small
Yep.
investment.
And it might help somebody that wants to buy some property to turn into rental property also.
Right.
So, that's one of the hang-ups. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve, the resolution declaring the city a small city development program.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion passes unanimously. G2.
Can I ask Gary a question? Gary, can I ask you a question?
Sure
Did
can.
you approach the chief of police about this at all?
Yes.
What did he have to say?
You know, he said, you know, in the ordinance, he's gotta go by the laws, and right now, the ordinance says you have to have a valid driver's license. And I said, I'm sure that was put in to help you with underage kids
Right.
driving. I'm an exception to that rule.
So your wife will vouch for you?
Yeah.
I was just curious if you had
Yeah.
talked to the
Yeah,
chief.
but, you know, like I said, I'd come down, and she says, well, you can go down and talk to them in between, you know, I've had other things going on that I've missed meetings and stuff.
Yep.
But, you know, I went down and talked to him, and he says, you know, and that's the same with the state, says, that's what the rules are, but here I've got a Minnesota statute that says cities and counties can give me a special permit, you know, which lasts for 3 years, and, you know, to operate, golf carts, ATVs and stuff with, an eye doctor's, you know, I've got the recommendations here that he says, he thinks, you know, physically, you know, I'm good enough to drive, yep, I've got a deal, but, you know, at slower speeds in a golf cart and stuff, he thought I was good enough to drive in a car, you know, maybe stay off the interstates and stuff, but the state says until you go through this type of stuff through the state, you know, they can't do nothing for me. So now I'm here, you know, just trying to get some mobility in town.
Oh, I don't blame you,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Is there any way to issue a permit without changing the ordinance?
No, but because this is not a land use ordinance, it doesn't require a public hearing. We can make the change and bring it back to your next council meeting in 2 weeks, and you can pass the ordinance, and we'll get it published, and...
Okay, can we, if we do something like that, can we include in the ordinance that it requires a medical, variance or whatever?
You know, it might be as simple as, it's unlawful for any person to operate a motorized golf cart on city streets without a valid state driver's license or authorization from the chief of police.
Gary, do you have what's the state statute number that you have
Yep.
there? You don't have that.
Right, this is, you know, in the ordinance part there, you know, it states that, you know, it comes in with,
Do you see?
you know, 'cause the state doesn't regulate, you know, what I got from them, they don't regulate what goes on, you know, in the city.
Right, we
And
can
that's a
bring it back to the next
city
meeting.
ordinance.
Yeah, we can come back to the next meeting with a way to,
I don't see any problem with.
yeah,
Okay.
to do that.
It'll just be a matter of writing something up, I think, Gary, I think everyone feels the same way.
Okay.
Can I ask you one other question?
Yep.
I mean, since I only have one eye,
Yep.
what do they, I mean, how did they get you on peripheral vision?
Well, when you went in for the eye test,
Yeah.
or renew your driver's license, you know, you do the peripheral vision
Yeah.
test. And I've got this, it's called retinitis pigmentosus, and I've known I've had it for 30-plus years, and it just slowly starts
On both sides?
creeping in, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
you
got
need
it
to
on
have
one side.
to drive, legally, you need to have 110 peripheral vision, and you can do that with one eye.
Oh, right, and I know,
Yeah,
when I got a
evidently.
commercial license, I have to get a waiver from the state to do it, that's why I was kinda curious, if
Okay.
I thought you said just maybe on one side of that, well, sure,
Yeah,
okay, get
no,
it.
so they're both, and I'm below the 110, and so they
Okay.
said I can't, you know, like I said, my eye doctor said, well, you know, that's the first thing they teach you when you get in driver's training, you know, check for your blind spots, you know, and now with all the new cars, they've got the bells and whistles, but they said, no, until you go to the Congress and they change the laws, they won't let me drive on a highway.
We have to try and have self-driving cars, you don't
Right.
get to see it all.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
It's okay.
And I see somebody, I seen that there, and somebody got ran over by one.
Yeah.
Uber crash.
Yeah, so.
Coy, what was the statute?
You had a 65B.48 subdivision 5.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're all with you, Gary.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
All right, take it.
I mean, and then I know you have to
There is a
follow all
process.
the other ordinances of the insurance and routes and stuff, but, you know, I just, you know, it says you needed one, and, you know, I don't wanna get in trouble, so, you know, that's, I found that where it says you can get a special permit, you know, from the city ordinance and stuff.
She'll get something written up
Yep.
and then we'll
Yep.
take care of you.
We'll bring it back next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
This light can maybe go on and off.
Is this the up-to-date ordinance? I just, did
Yep.
we change times of operation? Am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, there is no times anymore, it still says it on here though, I seen.
It says sunrise to sunset. Didn't we change that, Lonnie?
Yeah, we did.
It's 24 hours a day now.
So this isn't the up-to-date version?
This is
There
the
should
one
be an
online.
up-to-date one,
This
yeah.
is the
isn't.
one online, which they update for us annually?
Annually.
No.
We'll double check it.
Yeah, 'cause
Cause
we
they do that
changed the
for us,
times.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We'll double check, cause we send it to them for them to update it annually, and then we get it on the website,
Because it was
so.
2008 is when most of it's been
As
changed.
long as you have the lights, it's, any time of day, you know.
Okay.
I just-
We'll double check with them.
Just
Thank you.
FYI,
Yeah, thank you. We'll double check with them.
cause that wouldn't have been, we changed that this year, so,
Yep.
It still wouldn't be in the annual update yet.
right,
Yeah.
I usually send that in February or January,
must have been January.
might have been January.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, all right. Mayor's report, I just have one thing I'll say here about the library. Last meeting under the committee report, I brought up that Art was taking care of getting the library roof fixed. We had a library board meeting last night, and there's a plumbing contractor and a roofing company coming in to fix the problem. And the engineer and the architect have signed off on it and said, yep, we're not gonna be charged by the plumber. We may have some costs with the roofing contractor, because it's kind of a change to what they've done, but the plumber, there's no charge to us on that, because they didn't follow the plans. So,
Oh, okay, good.
so that's gonna be resolved, so next winter, that problem should, way the vents go out for the 4 vents for the bathrooms, 2 of them weren't supposed to go out where they went out, and those keep getting knocked off. Again, I'm not an engineer, but they just keep getting knocked off and water pours in. They're gonna eliminate those 2 and run them somewhere else and weld over it to get to the edge and do what they have to do, so we're gonna get that fixed
Good.
in our brand new building. So that's all I have tonight. I know Teresa's gonna cover the comprehensive plan, the administrative report, so on the administrative report.
Okay, so housing study update, I actually was afraid that this whole thing was gonna get held up for $2,000. It turns out that the Dodge County Board of Commissioners is kicking in the last $2,000, so, the county EDA will have all the money they need now to get the, countywide housing plan, going and keeping it on the schedule that was in your packet, so. That's a potential motion. I don't need any motion. All the money is accounted for now. I did receive a letter from Manpower. They have a increase to their, rates. I went ahead and just applied that so you can see what the increase would be from our current hourly rate, for the city hall employee that we have, to what the hourly rate will be, going forward, so. That's in your packet. I should go ahead and say though that, Amy is doing an excellent job for us. It's turned out to be a really good relationship with Manpower, both for us and for her. We would not have been able to hire her for the position because she does not have a 2-year degree. And, Manpower offers her the opportunity to actually get that education for free. So while she's working for us and learning the job, she's also getting the education that she would need to be able to be hired for the job. So it's working out really well for us. And I think we're really satisfied with the work that she does, so, that's worked out really good for us. Iserina Refrigeration, Kelly O'Mara is the engineer who was recommended to us by WHKS for our, dehumidification project, and as you know, we did, 6 times as much work as we thought we were gonna be able to do there, under his guidance. So I'm looking for approval to go ahead and use Kelly again to do the refrigeration, project. So that, I do need a motion to hire Kelly to do that refrigeration study for us.
And this is required, correct? This is
Well,
phase
we're
out of
gonna
refrigerants, or-
run out of R-22 refrigerant at some point. We can use it recycled, but,
I think
yeah,
it was
it's complicated.
2022, they figured
Or something,
that
yeah.
you're gonna have to start looking, that's kind of stuff to come out of the last ice rink committee meeting.
Yeah.
And I stopped down and talked to Steve about this stuff, so.
Do it now, get ahead of it.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. We'll
Teresa's
just have it,
yeah.
we'll just have the engineering done. We'll know what it's gonna cost. We can have the conversations about it and make informed decisions when it's time.
So we can budget for it over
Yeah.
time versus having it be
Well,
Like,
knee-jerk reaction.
this right here is he's gonna put together the scope to be sent out 2 bids.
Okay.
This isn't the bid to do the work, so. and
This
then-
is the end to get the.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and
Then we'll-
he's got did you, I didn't know about the extra on here, the mat refrigeration, I talked to Steve about, did you catch that, I don't know what that was?
No, actually, I think Howie got it first, and
Yeah,
you were to
he kinda
move
just
forward with it.
forwarded on, he said.
Okay, yep,
But it, on
exactly.
here, there is, and this is why I stopped out there.
Yeah, you got, I think you can say one.
The youth hockey program has been into the gambling, pull tabs, running the pull tabs. So they've been getting into some extra money to be able to put back into the program. And one of the proposals is possibly to have a cooling mat that they would put out in October on the sheet, under the sheet of ice before they put the ice down. So on warm days when we lose the sheet from the, sun melting it, and we'll redo it. The outdoor rink, outdoor rink. They put this cooling mat down, so when if it was 35 degrees on the sun beating down, they could fire the refrigeration up and cool this ice to keep it from melting on these warm days. Cause being in the program for years, you lose that sheet of ice, you're out of ice for 2 weeks outside. So that's the potential outside ice sheet, is to maybe size the refrigeration equipment to cool that also. But Howie did say, if it's $100,000, no one's gonna go for it, if it's like $20,000, it might be something. So if you question that, which I did, the potential outside ice sheet is the sizing of the refrigeration to possibly cool that mat underneath the ice, to be able to keep the ice all winter. Okay. So, and the mat would be, from what he said, would be purchased by the youth program. Okay, so.
Alright.
That's it.
All right, good.
So
No,
this
that's
is
fine.
to move forward with the engineering though, what we're doing.
Perfect, okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
That draft comp plan, we're like coming down to the wire. If you have any comments, please get them to me, right away. You will have an open house on Monday and a public hearing, before the planning commission. The planning commission is under no pressure to act on Monday. They actually will have another meeting before your June 13th council meeting, which is the meeting at which we were planning for council adoption of the comprehensive plan, so you have a little time.
Okay, so Monday, we
Yeah.
have the open house type thing where people
At
come in
5:30.
5:30.
Yep.
And then council has a meeting?
No, then planning commission.
Right, okay.
Planning commission has a public hearing.
Right, okay, the way you say that, I
Okay.
thought the council was gonna have a public hearing, then planning and zoning was gonna have their meeting.
No.
So it's
That-
planning and zoning
They
meeting.
have extra time, planning and zoning meeting, and they will have the planning and zoning commission has a meeting like on June 11th, ahead of your meeting on the 13th.
Got it.
So there's no pressure for planning commission to make the recommendation on Monday. If they wanted time to make the they can or they can't.
Okay.
But
so
they're not
then,
pressured to.
Are we gonna make sure we post the third?
I think it's already up. I think it's already up.
Thank you.
It's been up already.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
It's been up for about a month.
I don't look at the door when
We got that. Good. So just get me any comments, so maybe by the end of the
Okay.
week, and then, they can be incorporated for the open house. Okay, and so I know there's been some interest perhaps in, removing some plantings from the old stone water tower site, and the agreement that we, came to was that there would be written consent for the removal of the plantings. Lonnie, did you hear any more about the rose bush?
No.
No, okay. So, we can come back, I can come back if,
Well, what is it, I mean?
They supposedly planted a rose bush at the water tower, a memorial for someone. And they were talking about asking permission to take care of it, trim some other bushes, and I asked, why did you plant a memorial bush on city property? I mean, the Dodge County Historical Society's got a lot of properties, why didn't they plant it on one of their properties where they could take care of it themselves, being that it's on city property? And that's what the talk was, moving the plant to one of your properties.
Who is it?
Hmm?
Who is it?
I don't know, never was told.
Well, who, I mean, how to get on the agenda, I mean, that's no name. It's gotta be public knowledge, they're planting on.
oh, who the memorial is for, we don't know.
No.
But who asked to move it?
Alton.
April. Oh.
Yeah, April talked about it.
I have no knowledge of
It was April. Talk to your wife.
I have no knowledge.
That's why I was waiting for Everett to say something, I'm like, well, it was April, she was in
Yeah,
the
it was
office.
April.
Yeah, it was April, so.
Okay.
we-
So I guess maybe we don't need that, so that's all the information.
What I would like to propose though is that I have no problem, if she wants to move that rose bush wherever she
Okay.
wants to move it, she planted it, it's her, basically.
I would
her
agree.
right. I think we
Okay.
should have written permission that if she decides she wants to move it at a later
Okay.
date, she has her permission.
So we don't
have to wait for
We don't have to
Okay.
wait for it, that way we
Okay.
can do it.
So if you wanna make a motion to provide her with written,
I'll make a motion to provide April Paulson with written permission
Okay.
to move the rose bush whenever she sees fit.
I
Okay.
second it.
Third, I have a motion, second, third. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, thank you.
okay.
Okay,
We'll get
now,
that out
on,
there.
on the same thing up there, I got a call on it. There was some kind of little shrubs that was supposed to be trimmed last fall, and someone wanted to get them done before things started growing here. Now, that isn't hardly, I think it's the brown grass ones. If you would've just clipped them off, they'd have been green now, but they weren't able to.
Well, I offered, Linda Jervis to, to come to this council meeting to get consent.
Yeah, that's for landscaping purpose, I mean, to cut off some dry grass, I mean, that shouldn't have to come to council. If we got volunteers that'll take care of that stuff, that's what I'm looking at, I mean.
I'd like to
I
see.
think what our whole point, sorry, Chris.
When you
I
start
think-
taking plants out, I agree that's like the addition of a building, you know.
I think what our whole point was when we were meeting with the water tower committee, is that it's on city property. The city employees should be able to take care of city property. That's what we agreed on that night. And we agreed on it several times, and they had no issue with that. So when they come back and ask to do trimming and do this and do that, it's kind of counterproductive of what they agreed on.
Well, it's kinda counterproductive that this hasn't been done either. You know what I
I
mean?
know that, but one thing leads to another, and it goes on and on and on. And they agreed, and our committee, when they signed those papers, that it was city property, the city would take care of their own property. Now, if they wanna walk by there and trim the shrubs, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I really wouldn't.
Well, this
But I
is
mean,
what I was gonna get out here, maybe, how can we work around some of this and maybe let Ronnie run the trimming and talk to them people about the volunteers?
Yeah, well.
You know what I
the
mean,
way
why do
they-
we
But
gotta
see,
get
that
involved?
got-
This is getting to be way too much
Yeah, and I'd like
for
to-
all
Okay,
of us
but
to
here's
be.
what I'm gonna tell you. The way that the agreement is written, it's very specific. That Historical Society, its members, or its agents must have written consent from the Casson City Council. and both parties signed it, and neither Ron or I have any authority to grant anyone permission to do something different than what the agreement says.
Because that's how it got all messed up in the first place, was Linda said that Ron give her permission, she didn't need to get permission from the council, and Linda agreed with what we agreed on. That's the whole thing. We're not asking for anything unusual.
Okay, can I interrupt?
Sure, absolutely, Chris.
All right, just,
Water tower.
We were done with it.
Yeah, I'm off this for reports.
So the way I read the agreement in paragraph 6,
Okay.
shall make any improvements or perform any landscaping.
Yes.
Trimming a bush to me isn't an improvement or landscaping. I think somehow we can go back and propose an amendment to give some latitude to our city administrator and our park department that if somebody comes and volunteers and Ron says, yep, that's something we would do normally anyway, and you would like to do it, I don't know why we wouldn't let you do it. And here's why I'm gonna say that, because the auxiliary from the Legion helps take care of flower beds and stuff up at the North Park, at the Veterans Memorial Park, around the flagpoles and the memorials and stuff up there. They planted flowers with that. We let them volunteer and just take care of it.
So we would
if we have a
then-
volunteer.
I think what you're saying is defining landscaping.
Yeah, improvement in
Okay.
landscaping. Landscaping, to me, isn't deadheading a flower. If I'm going on a walk and somebody wants to deadhead a flower as they walk by, knock yourself out. I mean, I get it, we have an agreement, it says what it says. I would like to see the interpretation loosened a little bit, that, yeah, we don't want you going in and hauling any new pavers and putting in a project and that type of thing, or even planting new stuff, but to trim a bush or some grass that's already there, I think we can come up with a council and say, without amending the agreement, to give our park department and the city administrator the authority to allow a volunteer to assist with things that the city would do.
You'd have to put it into the agreement, or down the future, we'll be in the same spot, cause the new council would say, it says, without an, you know what I mean?
We're gonna be in the same spot anyway, cause this water tower's gonna keep coming up as long as.
No, but, no, but I'm just saying, it's just like you said before, if we document everything, so down the road, the next council, or 5 councils down the road, they don't have the same problem of how they interpret it. You write it in there.
Document it how you want it. All I'm saying is that we should be able to, if a volunteer comes forward to cut some grass, I would like to just be able to see a citizen who volunteers to cut some decorative grass. If it fits with what we're doing, and Ron says, hey, yeah, that's where it needs to be done anyway, and you wanna take care of that today, why couldn't we? I just don't understand
Why
why
would
we
you turn
couldn't.
down a volunteer that wants to help improve something, you know
Now,
what I mean?
full disclosure, if they'd have called me and asked me, I just told them go do it. And then you could all get mad at me and slap me with whatever violation you want, but I just said, get your clippers and go do it, I'll come help you.
I mean, I went up there and looked at
How
it,
about-
got out and talked on the phone, I mean, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, you know, so it's nice that we have citizens that will take the initiative to beautify the city and want this, and then now we got this. I mean, it's like, come on, let's simplify this.
So I would.
So
I'd like-
Lonnie and I can talk between now and your next meeting and come up with something, how about that?
Yep, and propose
Okay.
them, say, hey, here you go,
Okay.
we're gonna, whatever,
Okay.
whatever needs to be documented,
We'll
fine,
come up with
document it. But something that,
Okay.
if someone wants to volunteer to trim a bush or trim a flower, I'd say we have other things to spend our time on.
And
Okay.
I think it needs to go to the Park and Recs to decide, because we don't need no wishy-washy going from, somebody calls someone, it goes to the next person, just throw it on Parks and Recs, it's Park and Rec.
Cause they're the ones who be trimming the bushes.
They're the ones taking care of it, they're the ones running the weed whackers, the mowers, the clippers. Give it to Ronnie, Ronnie sees somebody that's knowledgeable in green stuff, and then he should be the one saying, go ahead and do it. We don't need this jumping back and forth of someone getting mad at someone because someone said something, one person.
And you don't need to waste your time with somebody trimming flowers on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
Lonnie
we
and
can do
I'll
that?
meet and we'll come back with
We can get
something
it.
for you.
All right.
Okay, before you move off that, since we're on the water tower, it's kind of that. One last thing, I got Teresa does not have a key for a padlock that she got from Bert years ago when he changed the lock on her, she threw it away. That's done.
No fee. All right. Repairs to the water tower.
Repairs to the water tower, May 29th will be the start date, on the water tower. If weather doesn't cooperate, it'll be the first week in June, so very shortly, that work will start. The folks who are doing that work for us will also come and take a look at the WPA pillars up at the Aquatic Center on Monday at 10, meet Ron there, and then provide us with a quote for that work as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. On to the engineer's report.
I hope you don't have that much.
Sidewalk width.
Try to make it quick. Thank you, Mayor and Council. One item tonight, sidewalk width. There's 2 documents within your council packet. That is a letter from Carter Blaine, developer, and then an email response that I have, and then I'll also reference an email that was sent to me from Carter and kind of his response to my response, to kind of bring things full circle. That was addressed to the council, but evidently the council didn't receive it this afternoon, so I'll just speak on it, because it kind of, in my opinion, kind of wraps things up. So previous council action was we changed our standard sidewalk width, the width of the sidewalk from 4 feet to 5 feet to meet ADA requirements, which is a federal law that I'm obviously recommending the city follow the federal law. The letter from Mr. Carter Blaine has asked the council to revisit that action because he references the actual ADA requirements that talks about if the sidewalk is less than the 5 feet to the standards that we change it to, you can provide passing distance that are 5 feet wide every 200 feet. And he recommended that calling driveways as passing areas, everybody follow that. So I think when we talked, I said it's virtually 5 feet wide as a requirement. It can be 4 feet wide if we have these passing requirements, but I'll get into why. I don't necessarily, so I agree with the ADA requirement that is referenced in your council packet in his letter. I don't agree that the driveways provide that passing distance because they do not meet ADA requirements. And that's what my response letter goes into. The grades aren't right, there's vertical discontinuities, that is a very tight ADA requirement from a constructability standpoint. And ultimately those have been discussed, driveways have been discussed to provide these passing distances. And ultimately the industry has decided that 5 feet wide is the way to go because driveways don't meet that, the passing requirement within the ADA requirements. And I'm also not aware of a city that would allow that sort of construction. And then in theory, we could have like a narrower sidewalk and then have all these bump outs on every property that would provide this passing distance. But at the end of the day, that becomes a policing issue. I mean, is Public Works gonna police this, or are we gonna put it in development agreements so when it's not built, we're tearing sidewalk out to provide this passing distance? So I think that's why the industry and other towns said, screw it, let's go 5 feet wide to meet these ADA requirements. Furthermore, I don't know if you've ever tried to walk on a 4-foot sidewalk with another adult next to you, you ultimately start walking offset, or one person is walking off the sidewalk because, again, 4 feet doesn't meet 2 adults passing each other. So that's kind of why the industry has gone to that, and most towns have. So that's kind of the summary of my letter there. Carter did provide me with, again, an email today. His comment was he's finding the majority of the surrounding cities are doing 4-foot walks. I don't know what he means by doing 4-foot walks. He asked me to research this before giving my opinion to the city, and then ultimately all these things add an undue burden to developers and builders to be competitive, which we can debate that till the cows come home, but again, it's a federal requirement, a federal law that the city has to abide. So I did some more research on 4-foot sidewalks. Stewartville, Byron, Rochester, Pine Island, Dodge Center, Plainview, La Crescent all require a 5-foot walk. Dodge Center I don't think is currently following that requirement. I think they are building 4-foot walks, which again is probably not recommended or not following the ordinance. Manorville and Zumbrota don't have ordinance, but we represent both those towns. Talked to those city engineers, and if they said if there was a development, 5-foot walk's the way to go. That's why as a company, that's what we make our recommendation to our councils and cities that we represent. So again, that's the recommendation based on the federal law. The unborn added undue burden to developers to be competitive. We could debate that, whether or not, affordable housing and sidewalks are worth the dollars to be spent, remove sidewalks from our subdivisions. I think that, that's not a direction the council wants to go, but that's a direction you could consider. So I guess in conclusion, my recommendation still stands to, continue with the 5-foot walk, as a minimum requirements to meet, again, those ADA requirements, what is a federal law. So obviously I'm not recommending that you violate a federal law. Answer any questions you may have.
So what is the federal law state on the 5-foot driveway? Is there a certain pitch? Or sorry, a 5-foot wide sidewalk? Is there a pitch that it's gotta maintain?
There's
north to south, or?
there's a lot of requirements in a sidewalk, and there's even more requirements when you get to a ped ramp, that's why you see all the truncated domes, but, the pitch or the cross slope of a sidewalk needs to be 2% maximum. So when we get to driveways, let's say in theory, we have a 4-foot wide walk, and then we get to a driveway that would be proposed as a passing area that needs to be 5 foot wide. That driveway apron is gonna be typically, in 90% of the situations, steeper than 2%. Or if we went the backside of the sidewalks towards the house, that area is potentially on private property. And then the driveway apron is not regulated currently in your ordinance, so if that driveway apron, is in poor condition and doesn't meet the 2% cross slope, does that become a sidewalk now, and then we have an ordinance issue. Furthermore, there's also a, construction joint, sidewalk support first, apron support second, so that joint in there violates, 88 vertical discontinuity requirement, because it ultimately
So-
doesn't meet the 80 requirements.
On that joint, if you're going down a sidewalk and it's crossways in front of you, like where they stop the sidewalk at a property, next property, come in for 6 months, so that joint there is in violation?
If it's not built correctly, yes, the kind of the rule of thumb is if you put a cigarette, butt in that joint, then it doesn't meet the requirement. But that's also perpendicular to the path of travel, so you're going down, you hit that joint. If you were in a crossing, location at a driveway apron, that joint would be not in perpendicular to your travel, it'd be kind of in your wheel lane if you're like in a wheelchair.
So is the
So it's a little
sidewalk
different.
Is the sidewalk width for wheelchair or walking?
It's Americans with Disability Act, so any person with disability, which includes, visually handicapped, in wheelchairs, that kind of wrapped up into anybody with a disability. That's why we have like truncated domes are actually for the visual impaired, so their, canes can feel where they're leaving a safe sidewalk into a roadway.
Well, I mean, just spitballing here, so if I go back and read Carter's, he was saying, proposing a 4-foot wide sidewalk with passing lanes every 200 feet.
No.
Well, he wants
To
the
use-
driveway.
he wants driveway.
No. So if within every 200 feet, obviously we're gonna have a driveway pretty close to it anyways, right?
Yep.
Just spitballing here, if you incorporate, if you got a 4-foot wide sidewalk, you go to the driveway and you incorporate a bump out into that sidewalk, 6 inches on each side, you get your 5-foot passing lane, right?
Yep, and again, I think in theory it could work, in that scenario it would potentially work.
So instead of 4 foot going through the driveway, when it comes to driveway, the full width of the driveway is your 5-foot wide passing lane.
You'd have to take the foot towards the street, not towards the property. because
No, you
you'd
gotta
have
be
to
at
use
the
it.
boulevard.
Yeah, so you'd have to take it towards the street.
No, not necessarily, the sidewalk can move 6 inches towards the street.
And actually, the back of walks are a foot off the property line, so you,
Right, I
again,
mean,
in
so
theory, you
yeah,
could do it if,
we're already, I mean,
that might work.
so I'm just saying, I mean,
I
depending
know we have a
upon-
contractor on the board, but a lot of times contractors aren't that good to get them exactly there, or they're staked that way, so.
I mean, I remember when sidewalks came in the planning commission, Tim Hickey, he's the one who started it, and, to get them all put in again, and, back then, we all kind of agreed with it, but, I've been traveling the city here quite a bit the past couple of weeks, especially on the weekend, we drive around town, and I wish when we do have the sidewalks in, that people actually did use them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I do see some people, more and more I see it than when they're first going in, but, I don't know, I mean, I understand contractor side of it, of trying to save costs or whatever else to keep I'm tired of seeing, codes changing, making costs go up,
What are the lots being put in now? Are they 80 feet wide, 60 feet wide, what are they?
Yeah, 70 typically.
70, yard of concrete, 80.
Yeah,
80
$5
square
a square
feet.
foot, so, 70 times 5, that would be the extra cost of that concrete.
$350.
Yeah, that actually,
In
when we put it in.
a
it's gonna be less.
$300,000 house, nobody's gonna know it's $350.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's a yard of
Well, if
concrete,
your
it's
money,
80
yeah,
foot.
but every
yard of
time I turn
concrete,
around, I'm the
50
last
feet.
one in. Well, they did 350, they did 350, well,
Yeah.
I only want 100.
And the other thing, I mentioned policing earlier, now we're not necessarily policing, sidewalks to maybe the level that the council may wanna police them, specifically if the home builders are ultimately building public infrastructure in the city right away that the city's ultimately responsible for. I don't think there's been a process through the building, building permitting process and check off on checking sidewalks. I don't think anybody's doing that, but ultimately that is gonna be a potential future liability for the city, financially, because if these sidewalks are not ADA compliant, you could be violating a federal law that ultimately a home builder built, that is city infrastructure. So, that's another kind of piece of the puzzle. It's kind of something that, I guess I need to make the council aware of too. So if we add in this other element of I'll call it an unusual construction method, is everybody gonna be on board? And then when we pour $10,000 in sidewalk and one has to come out and replaced, where's that gonna be on a developer responsibility, staffing, policing responsibility, homeowner responsibility, and then are we doing ourselves a disservice because we're trying to work through a way to make an ADA requirement met, where at the end of the day, making it that foot wider is the best thing to move forward, and that is a basis to my recommendation, what I referenced in the email, that I don't think it's worth to go that level of effort to add that 1 foot. And again, furthermore, if you pass another adult, I bet one of those adults is stepping off the 4 foot wide sidewalk. And even like the city of Minneapolis, metropolitan communities in MnDOT are going more towards 6 foot wide sidewalk, again, due to that reason of passing. But again, want more cost, more concrete is very expensive, so it's again, we want less expensive houses, and that's a balance that the council has to consider. But at the end of the day, my recommendation is to have a 5 foot wide sidewalk. But is just that a recommendation and follow any council direction you give us?
At the end of the day though, I can't believe it isn't that way. I've built in town, and I was told on my sidewalk, you'd better be right. I measured across the street one way, I was so many inches above the curb, the other way I was so many inches. And I asked the question, what's right then? So I split the difference, that's where I put mine in. So that's what you got people doing right now. And I know a bunch of sidewalk got put in that northeast park up there. We had to tear a bunch out to get a grade so we get that ADA, remember? That was a couple of years ago. So the talk of having a grade there for the guys to put the sidewalk in, someone should give them a grade where they gotta be. We gotta have all the ADAs staked now by you. So at least toward the end of the block, somebody should be responsible for putting a grade stake in, so that the sidewalk that comes up to it is gonna be able to make ADA, instead of taking 2 panels out or 3 panels out to make them, which we talked on the house that was built on 12th Avenue, 13th Avenue. You know, that's supposed to be, that we said that in the meeting. So, I mean, it's a talk that's gotta be done. We gotta start giving grade for these guys, otherwise we're gonna be spending more money on ped ramps besides, or someone's gonna be, I guess. I don't know if that's part of an inspection where they pull out a tape and...
So to clarify a little bit, so in a new construction project, let's say a new subdivision comes in, as part of the initial construction of the roads and the public infrastructure includes construction of the ped ramps, and then we are checking them for ADA compliancy. So the ped ramps themselves should be ADA compliant. It becomes when each individual homeowner, we've kind of left the project and signed off on the ped ramps. It's each individual homeowners that are building the sidewalk piecemeal, that's where it's not really being checked. And if we're proposing to provide, again, a unique construction in Coy scenario, that who's gonna start policing that? Be a Carter/Coy scenario. We're gonna start policing that, and again, are we doing ourselves a disservice because we start removing some sidewalk and saying it has to be ADA compliant? You missed your little 5 foot bump out there, remove your 70 feet of sidewalk, when adding that extra foot is only 70 times 5, was it $350? I mean, I think that's the better route to go. Plus, we're having a higher level of service for our citizens to pass each other instead of walking, so.
So is this just for new developments?
It could be any sidewalk that goes in.
Well, but like, I'm just thinking of up in our neighborhood, we've got our spot, and there's an open lot with no sidewalk, then there's sidewalk, then there's an open lot with no sidewalk. So when those people build 2 years from now, are they gonna be required to put in a 5 foot sidewalk to match up to the 4 foots that are already there?
Part of, I believe, my recommendation in the motion from the council and what Teresa's action as administrator was that we start this right away, and that was going out with, I believe, any new building permit, and the builders were notified of the new requirements. So I don't know if there's a house that a building permit was already pulled and then the sidewalk came after the fact, I'm not sure what the.
No, but I know what
direction-
Chris is
We
saying.
are gonna have that, there's no
Oh,
doubt.
there's gotta be a way, there's no.
It-
Okay, I just.
But at some, and then the other thing is, how do we police that if we say, well, we don't start today, then we're gonna be.
Right.
Well, I mean, the other
It's
thing
gonna be
too,
difficult
Brandon,
to place
is
in
that
the
you're in
banks.
Minnesota here.
You'd have to stamp it on the subdivisions as they start, it'd be the only
Yeah.
way to.
Well, we just said it's the new city standard from here on out, so.
But the big thing here is that you live in Minnesota, after 1 year of that thing being in, it's not gonna be ADA compliant by frost standards and Mother Nature.
I don't disagree with you,
You
there's a
know,
lot of things that I don't like
99.9%
about
of sidewalks aren't gonna meet it anyways,
it, especially the ped ramps, for sure.
you know. I
Plant the
mean,
boulevard trees then.
right, I mean, we're in Minnesota here, so Mother Nature, if you got it in perfect, good job, but next spring, good luck. So unless you let that earth sit for 2-3 years, it ain't gonna be ADA compliant anyways.
So if somebody's building a house, if I'm a contractor, I'm building a house in Stewartville or Rochester or Byron or Casson, I have to put in a 5-foot sidewalk.
Yes, and the only one I found that wasn't was Dodge Center for a reason they're not following their,
Okay, but just saying, as far as being competitive to where Casson says you have to have
Sure.
5 foot, and everybody else has to have 4 foot, that would be not a competitive situation, but.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I think it has to stay.
I gotta say, I can't say that, I agree with it, whether it's 4 foot on one or two sides of you already, to put a 5 foot in.
Yeah, but if you do the 5 foot now on the one that isn't there, say 4, 5, 6 years down the road, that 4 foot one goes bad, or they wanna tear it out, they gotta go to the 5 foot. So if you tear that out, you might as well have the one that's there now, make that 5 foot so that when you're replacing the others, it matches. Otherwise,
So-
if you tell this guy he can go 4, and then this guy tears his out down the road and replaces it to 5 to match, now you're still gonna have the same problem. So you might as well.
Well, that subdivision would stay the same, but what I'm saying, if I got two
But we're
broken
not
panels
ADA
in the middle,
compliant.
if two of my panels are broke in the middle of the block, I'm not putting 5 foot back in them. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying a whole house.
Right, a new lot. you
A
would
whole
put
new
that
lot
on-
should be 5 foot.
Not a repair. I mean,
Carter
Well,
Way takes
that's
care
what
of
I'm
everything.
saying. That's what I was
Carter Way
saying,
takes care of
just
all
a
of
minute,
it.
a new
Except for
lot,
the
though, they're
ADA
saying this new
Yeah,
house
it's
going, you're
a
putting a 5 foot in, the guy
It's
next
past the
door,
lanes, aren't
if he's got 4s, he ain't gonna.
Yeah, if you put them in the driveway, and you
Get
can
a couple,
pour
4
that
foot
5 foot right in that driveway.
So
one
that
shot.
doesn't go back to that, if they'd stay the same.
That $350 Carter will charge to the homeowner that buys
800.
it. Yeah, and he's not gonna lose money, he's not. Any builder, if they have to put in 5 foot sidewalks, that cost is gonna be covered into their fee that they charge the house. They aren't gonna lose any money, they're just not. If your costs go up for electrical wire,
I'm
do
not,
you
I'm not,
eat
that's
it?
not any
Do
part of
you
what.
eat it?
I'm not talking
No.
cost at all. I didn't
No.
say one thing about money, did I?
Nope.
I didn't, so don't say anything to me about money.
But I'm saying that they will recoup their costs. It needs to stay at 5 foot. If that's what we're shooting for.
A 5 foot sidewalk is gonna be easier to maintain and scope than every little passing lane that you're gonna add in. If you try to put those in, somebody's gotta go shoot the grade to make sure they're in compliance. Who's gonna do
You're
that?
supposed to do that now, but, I mean, that's like I said, we're just reiterating.
But you can shoot a grade on a
security.
5 foot sidewalk a lot faster than you
To
can
be
every 200
understood,
feet
though,
on a.
you're putting this from here on out, on a new subdivision.
No,
I think it's from-
every new construction.
New construction.
And I think that's, I would assume any building permit issued from last council meeting moving forward.
Yes.
And if it was an old, previously approved building permit in construction, I'm not sure if they were going 5 foot or not. So I'm pretty
Well,
certain they weren't, and.
The thing
hopefully
is,
they said that.
Sheldon Torkelson asked me about it before it even got to the council meeting, so, he's aware and,
But
yeah.
I guess, so I don't know where that stands with the city. I'm assuming it, so did it, with notification went out, so it
Yeah.
started from any building permit pulled after the date of the
I
last
don't
council
know
meeting?
that we,
What date was it?
I think we said sidewalks, like not tied to a building permit application. just sidewalks. And we can find a letter.
But
We can find a
I
letter and
think-
put it in the next packet if you'd like.
You know, I think we're looking for some direction to move forward, and I think the previous recommendation was to move forward starting that day and just start doing it.
Yep, 5-foot
and-
sidewalks,
Mhm.
yep.
I
Like
guess
any
if
sidewalk that went in with.
There was a misunderstanding, if a building permit was already pulled, I guess I don't know if the council would wanna go out on a limb and say, well, you didn't get you should have been notified, maybe they didn't know, and I don't know if we wanna go down that road, but
Well,
I just think the intent is I don't wanna get in a situation where we're spending more time policing which subdivisions have 5-foot walk or not, and just say, 5-foot walks, guys, start building them 5-foot wide if that's the direction of the council. That's my recommendation.
If we go to the 5-foot, I don't have a problem with the 5-foot. I'd rather see none, but.
Right, you already did.
I'd rather see none. For, full disclosure, I think, Zumbrota and Eoda do not require sidewalks in all the subdivisions. They have kinda like a sidewalk concept plan, and there's in some subdivisions, or not in some subdivisions too, so.
Yeah. But where I was going was that if I was a builder, and I've met with some people, and we've got plans to build their house, and I've done all my bidding and got my subs back and all the stuff I've got, and then all of a sudden now, even if it's $350, it's still $350 more than I have in my plan, and I really can't get that back. That's the only thing I'm saying, is that somehow we have to.
Any new.
Yeah, you have to know that ahead of time, so you know what your costs are. I don't know if we.
Well, you can't kick it back on the permits that are already pulled.
No, that's what I'm going at, if it's any construction, so if a permit was pulled in February and now they're getting ready to pour the sidewalk, unless we
Yeah, you can't do that.
pay the difference, we can't make them do, I don't think, because that's after the fact. I think
That was my understanding of the council direction at
Yeah.
the time, so.
Yeah, that's just bad form. And if we did that unintentionally, that was shame on us.
Yeah, big time.
But, that's not against you, I'm just saying from a.
Common sense.
From a
Yeah.
perspective of, we wanna have our ordinances and our rules, we wanna follow the federal law, but as far as being, accommodative to doing business the right way, it's kind of a bait and switch. Hey, here's what it's always been, here's what your permit fee is, and here's what you have to put in, and then, hey, now you're 90 days into building this house, it's time to pour the sidewalk, so guess what, it's an extra, I was just looking at my house, an extra 260 feet, 'cause it's a corner, and then it's an oblong shape, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's real money now that it's an extra $1,000 for corner lots and different things, so,
Look at all you get to enjoy it.
So, I don't know, as far as the timing of the thing.
Well, I think it would be interesting to take an inventory and still put in the 5-foot sidewalk, and if it's a matter of the dollars, the city has money for sidewalk improvements, and if the extra $350 is a make or break, whether or not we put in 5-foot sidewalks now when we have the opportunity, then it could be an opportunity for the city to say, we're making the $350 investment in the 5-foot sidewalk in this case. I can come back to you and tell you how many permits that would even affect.
But even on the whole year, if we did 50, I did calculation, it'd be $17,500 if there was 70 foot of sidewalk on every lot for the
Right.
entire year.
Right.
At 50 permits, or
Mhm.
50 lots.
So
Even if we come up with something with the city that says, hey, if you put in the 5-foot sidewalks, which we're requiring you to do, we'll cover half of it, or something. Out of our
right.
sidewalk.
So we'll take an inventory and come back to your next meeting with an inventory of who had permits before what dates and.
I think that'd just be fair, I think that'd be good
Yeah,
business, that'd be
that's
fair.
fine, we can do that. We're happy
In my
to do
opinion,
that.
I don't know if somebody else feels.
Then you
That
won't
works.
have to go to 4-foot sidewalk, you still get your 5-foot sidewalk, but you could still feel that you were, making up the difference for anybody who'd already had their concrete bid.
Yeah.
So,
We'll come back with an inventory and let you know what it comes out to.
Speak up.
What you're proposing there is good. I just don't like the thought of it changing in the middle of blocks 4 and 5.
Yeah.
but you gotta pick a point and you gotta do it, 'cause if you don't, there's how many subdivisions that are half done, a third done,
They already started at 4, I say that subdivision just finished.
But then it's not in compliance, and we're not moving forward with what we wanna do.
We're in
Eventually,
compliance as soon as we make a law and say when we're going ahead.
But then, we're gonna pull out
Right.
the,
As soon as we draw a line and say from here on, we're gonna be 5 foot. We're not gonna become irregular in these blocks.
cause it's
Probably
mine.
not something you wanna comment on legally.
Yeah.
Well, it was that way on another one, something like that, you know, as long as you had a plan. What does our sidewalk plan say?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
we
brought
haven't
that
drawn
up,
that up
about
yet,
that
have we?
plan on those ADA ramps.
Yeah, he had those.
Yeah.
To be
That's a
ADA
transition
compliant.
policy that's different than following a existing federal law.
Well, we're gonna group it right into it.
I'm not.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So 13 permits since January 1st.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to go back and switch permit, I pull permits every week. July 1st comes in, and the third year of the code cycle, I'm getting permits filed because I'm not sure what's out there for code change. So if I know I have houses on the docket, I'm filing 5, 6, 7, commercial, whatever, before July 1st because of this exact situation. I don't know what's coming, so.
So if we can bring us back that information, that'd be great.
Yep,
I don't
yep.
think
Will
it's a
do.
good form to switch
Yeah.
it in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
What's that?
I don't think it's a good form to, or good business to switch it.
So check on that,
That's
and
right.
see how many feet is there.
Right, yep, you can do it.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I had, I guess construction's, kicking back off and wrapping up last year's projects and busy on 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and that's about it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or concerns.
I do have one comment on that. Did you get any feedback? I've heard from a couple of people that said they weren't, then were signed up last year for emails, and then this year they didn't get them, and then they started work and they were,
Oh, yeah.
was
There's like 3 emails that went bad, that we haven't been able to chase down.
Okay.
Now with that said, we were, I'll call it maybe a week late in sending out an email. We sent out a group email, a week before construction, kicking things off. We sent it to an internal 3rd, 4th, and 5th group for our Microsoft OneNote, it's a longer story. We didn't realize it until, we didn't hear anything from anybody, we got a comment from, email from one of the residents, and then we're all looking at it like, what in the world is she referring to? We sent all this information on email, so we realized our mistakes, and we hurried up and sent out an email, and obviously responded first. That was a little, mistake on our part, that we sent it to a wrong email, but we still, I guess, got things going at that point, so we were a little later than normal. So everybody should be getting, and it's including the council, I copied on all those emails that are coming weekly from Tyler, so.
I was just curious that it was just.
Yeah, and if somebody's not, shoot Linda an email, and Teresa, and they can forward it on to Tyler, and we'll get them on the listserv, so it's growing.
Well,
and
it sounded like they
every day,
were
so.
on the list, and they just, but I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Yeah, if
There
they're
was
not,
that there was
have
a
them
little
shoot
first
somebody an email.
glitch,
Okay.
and now we're good.
Yeah, so if it was right at the start of the project, then
Yeah,
potentially.
cause they said all of a sudden, they said, we didn't get no notice, and why is there equipment in front of our house? I don't know, I said.
Yeah, they moved some equipment in here this winter too also, we don't
Yeah,
wanna wish
yeah.
it, but, so we like to send that out early, so. we just missed it
I don't think it was a big deal, it was just.
Right. Should be up and running with weekly emails, so if somebody's not on now, let us know, so get them on there. I think that's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
L1, attorney's report.
In the minutes after our closed session last meeting, we had just, given the total, amount that was paid for the entire library project. And there is a document in your packet that gives more of a breakdown about what that total amount was, and the final payment was only $26,531.38. That was recently made. That was the only undisputed amount. But the way the minutes and what was said in the open meeting made it sound as though the total final payment was $180,000. So this is really just clarification. So we'll get those, with the council's agreement, we'll get those amounts put into the minutes just to give a little bit more explanation about what, how that settlement was reached on the library project.
Right, so you did not approve the minutes as part of your consent agenda. they've been saved here, and then we will add this additional information to the record. So you'll be approving adoption of, or approving the minutes with the addition of the additional information for clarification.
Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the prior council meeting with the clarification regarding the library settlement.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll
So you're
second it.
bringing them back.
What?
Are you approving them now?
They're right here.
That additional information, they'll just get that added in,
Okay.
so.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
The city received a request, from Rosemary Blaine with regard to a development agreement that was executed last summer, so in the summer of 2017, with regard to reducing the, retainage, amount that's set forth in that agreement from 10% down to 5%. Within the last few meetings, we've had a discussion about how, that statute that talks about retainages in construction contracts, it was modified in 2016. The language used to say, unless a building and construction contract provides otherwise, retainage on a building may not exceed 5%. What the legislature did was take out that unless, provision of that subdivision of the statute. So it just now says retainage on a building and construction contract may not exceed 5%. So the first request that Rosemary Blaine is making is asking to change the retainage percentage set forth in that development agreement from 10% to 5%. And to that, I don't have any objection. The ordinance was modified in 2016, the development agreement was executed in 2017, so I do believe that 5% retainage is applicable to that development agreement. The second request that she's making in the letter is asking the council to approve reduction of the irrevocable standby letter of credit by $12,000, and she's enclosed a calculation of how she's come up with that. That I don't agree with. That letter of credit is based upon the total estimated construction costs. Now, the city did allow, as the work progressed, Carter Blaine to reduce that letter of credit to reflect work that's been done and approved by the city engineer. That letter of credit, that original amount doesn't have anything to do, well, I guess it does have something to do with the retainage. The retainage is based on that original amount, the original letter of credit amount. And it appears as though she's trying to, that's not how she's applying it here. So even with that 5% retainage, it would be 5% of the original letter of credit amount, $288,349. It doesn't, why I'm not explaining this well.
Well.
So we can reduce the retainage down to 5% in the development agreement without having to reduce the letter of credit unless additional work is done. They can reduce it down, they would reduce the letter of credit down to 5%. That would give us that the 5% retainage.
You do the math, it'll be more money than what she wants to have it. 10% would be 28,000, 14,000 for 5%, she's got 12,700 down there.
If I can maybe
So I don't know how that works.
add some clarity, so, I think the bigger conversation is the amount of retainage when we get by to completing a project. So we start with a large letter of credit, which is, to cover basically all the construction costs. As we construct things and we get down to final acceptance of the public infrastructure, accepting that subdivision as a warranty period. I believe there are 2 years in the development agreement. So
This
we-
one is one.
Or 1 year within the development agreement, because we paved the wear course, the last layer between us a year after all the utilities, and so it should kind of essentially a 2-year warranty period. So I think the question is what type of surety, what type of retainage, or it's being linked to retainage, but basically, how much are we gonna reduce that letter of credit, throughout that warranty period? And that's what we currently in the development agreements have at 10%, and we're tying the 5% amount of retainage to the development agreement and reducing that. So what does that mean? Obviously, an advantage of the developer, there's gonna be less letter of credit throughout that additional year, lowers, their cost to develop, makes housing more affordable, so that's the plus of it from that perspective. The other thing is, why do we have that surety? Ultimately, if there's any warranty items, we wanna call the contractor back and say, hey, fix your stuff. I've heard it from the council that they want better public infrastructure, want better roads, part of that is the surety, the warranty period. So by reducing that 5%, you're gonna lose some of that surety, or the city gets upside down and says, Brandon, go out there and fix that street, or can't get a developer to come back and build it, or a developer goes bankrupt, and then we have to get a contractor on board. So that's the intent. So that's a little bit of a balancing act here for the council. So, I mean, reducing it 5%, just understand that that's the reason why we had that in place. But the letter of credit action, I guess if the council decides that 5% is acceptable, the letter of credit reduction was done by us through construction, where developer would submit the amount of work that was completed to date, and we'd say, yeah, we agree with it, reduce the letter of credit as they built the project. But at some point, this spring in this case for this development agreement, when the wear course is placed and we have our punch list of all the miscellaneous items there's still some miscellaneous items in the subdivision, when they're all complete, we're gonna bring it back to the council in the form of acceptance of public infrastructure. We accept it, that's when the warranty period begins, and we retain this 5% of the total project cost for our surety, the city surety, that this work is acceptable over that warranty period. And that ultimately is kind of a little bit of a buffer, I'll call it, for the city council to get involved if needed, if a failed subdivision. Obviously, this specific developer has done a great job in the city of Casson, no doubt. I mean, they've probably been the largest developer in the area, but there's been failed subdivisions in the city during the recession. Byron had to deal with it. City of Orinoco had to assess their property owners a large assessment due to a final wear course. So that's the discussion that, in my opinion, is where does the city want to go with that? And we propose this method as a way to balance out the risk reward and the uncertainties of development and recessions and housing booms when they hit. So I think that's to me the consideration for the council. But I don't have any objections to it. It's just you're losing some of your surety.
Well, can I try to elaborate a little bit? I don't know what I'm gonna say here, but you've got, just what you said here, if I understand, you're saying that the retainage, once you get to the 1 year, or the acceptance of your workforce is down, whatever your 1-year warranty starts out.
Sure.
You just said that the 5% retainage is something that the city's gonna keep for 1 year for recourse on that.
Correct.
Retainage isn't for warranty work.
No, but any job that I've ever done, you have 5% retainage and you don't. I'm sorry.
So go ahead.
5% retainage is normally used to get the job complete. You get to substantial completion, and then you get occupancy or whatever, then you also have your punch list items, whatever else. You gotta clear your punch list items. Possibly, most times, in my case, it's after substantial completion. And if you don't, you take that 5% retainage, you go out and hire A&A Electric to come in and finish my work, and then they get all said and done. I got a $15,000 retainage, A&A charged $25, I'm responsible for another $10. You take me to court and sue me for it. I have yet to find a retainage that it picks up as a warranty item.
So, maybe to me the confusion is whether or not it's considered retainage or not. The city is asking for a surety in the form of an irrevocable letter of credit.
Right, but I'm just asking what you said on the first go-around with retainage. You said
Right.
you're using that for the warranty issues.
Because but we're not, because we don't hold a contract that has any retainage to it. That's where I don't necessarily agree that retainage is tied to a development agreement. Development agreement can have whatever terms it's in there.
Right.
So 10%, let's not use retainage, so 10% of the total project cost is the letter of credit through the warranty period is 10% of the project cost, not retainage, because we've set the terms of 10% through that 1-year warranty period.
For the letter of credit.
For the irrevocable letter of credit, because at the end of the day, that's the surety that the city has. We're not privy to any private,
You didn't say it that way.
contracts. Well, it's getting muddled because it's getting tied together.
Right, but what I'm saying is the 5% reduction by state statute is retainage, which once punch list items are done, you turn over the 5% is paid for. The 1-year warranty uses the irrevocable letter of credit.
Correct. Nothing in our development agreement has anything to do with contracting or retainage, even though retainage is.
Right, and the state statute has nothing to do with the 5% on that irrevocable letter of credit. That pertains to.
I would agree with their being tied together to kind of maybe have some parallel or lining up.
That would be in our agreement, but with the state statute is referring to retainage, which we're in agreement with, right, that it's at 5%. So the irrevocable letter of credit, I don't think gets tied to the 5%.
I don't disagree with you, so. The other
I'm
thing
just
is-
saying, the way you sounded it, it said it, you kinda married them together, which they're not really together at all. You can put them together in your agreement in the city level, but.
So are you recommending, as our attorney then, that we would comply with the 5% retainage due to the state statute as far as retainage, but maintain the 10% letter of credit?
No, no. I agree with that the statute reduces it down to the 5%. But I think that the, amount of the irrevocable letter of credit, the most we could hold back to cover that warranty period is 5%.
Of the letter of credit.
Of the original letter.
Of the original, not amount, reduces on. She wants to reduce 5% of what's left, not 5% of the original. This is what she's saying.
Correct.
What Mrs. Blaine said.
Yes.
Oh, right, and you're saying it should be 5% of the original.
Original line of credit.
Line of credit.
Correct.
Because the whole subdivision, or the whole isn't done, so we want 5% of the line of credit until it's done.
I guess that is a point of clarity. Are we proposing to, during construction, before final acceptance, have 5% retainage? Or what are we going to retain in the form of the letter of credit, as Coy mentioned, during the warranty period? Is that can also be 5%? Or is that gonna be 10%? Just Coy's point, they are different, because the retainage ultimately goes away. So if Carter, in this case, has a contract, that retainage goes away at the point of public acceptance of public infrastructure. And at that point, typical, if we were to do a project, and assuming, those contract documents were set up similarly, that retainage would go away.
I guess, yeah, you could do that.
But
Reduce
that'd
that.
be different than our
Yes.
surety
Yep.
conversation.
Reduce the
But-
retainage to 5%, but still require 10% of the original amount of the letter of credit through the warranty period.
That's what you recommend.
Yeah, that would give the city more, protection throughout that warranty period.
We have less protection during construction. If contractor was pull out and we're left with a site, and now our letter of credit is only 5% more than what's remaining to be constructed, and we have a little bit of risk, but more risk, I guess.
Clear as mud?
Yes.
Basically, the way it comes down to is, state statute says retainage is 5%, so we change it to 5%, that first part of the letter is done.
That's done.
Second part of the letter is trying, I think is what it looks like they're trying to say, is that 5% could also be included on the credit, which it doesn't. So, in the agreement, it's already at 10%, so reduce the retainage to 5%, the other part just stays at 10%. I mean, if it say it's $400,000 job, that's 40% of letter of credit, and I understand where they're coming from, because if they sign a letter of credit, that's $40,000 they can't borrow anywhere else for anything else. So I understand why they wanna have it reduced, but, you know, same aspect, like Lonnie said, it's cost of doing construction. It's, you know, whatever.
They roll it in.
Well, they don't have to pay for it, it's not rolled in. It only if they finish it and the city acts on it, collects on it.
Right.
Which we know limits Carter, or
Any
Goodfellows, or whatever, which we know we don't really have to ever worry about with those guys, but I think that,
No, it's not even called that now, it's called building.
and so, but I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. 5% for retainage.
During construction,
During
until the time
construction.
of acceptance of this, of the infrastructure of the subdivision.
That's state statute, which we will follow.
And then after that, the 10% retains.
Well, letter of credit.
Letter of credit.
Well,
Letter of credit stays the same.
It's the letter of credit the entire time, actually, during
Yeah,
construction.
from the start to finish, to the end of the warranty
Yeah.
period.
Correct, other than we're gonna have a point when we get down close to construction that the 5% is gonna jump up to 10%. We're not gonna be able to, I guess, yeah, I would, yes.
Quit muddying the waters. I just got it straightened out. Like I said, retainage is retainage, that's, once that you accept the project, it's done, punch lists are done, you have to pay retainage. You don't get that anymore, that's not warranty work.
Agree.
And that's, I think we all agree that that's, as long as it's the same for the next guy, that's what it's all about.
Well, the next project is something that they wanna reissue at that time, they'll sit down with city administrator, say we want a different percentage, or the mayor, or whoever.
I could maybe throw a little wrench in, again, the Blaines have been great developers, and I don't think the city's had a bad taste in their mouth, if you will, with the work that they've done, but, I've heard some rumblings that there may be some out-of-area developers, coming to town in two different projects, so, we're gonna have to reconsider having a further conversation at different times, so.
I make a motion to reduce the retainage from 10% to 5% on Blaine Development Agreement, but the letter of credit should stay the same, as is.
The 10% retainage
10%.
after acceptance as the minimum reduction of the letter of credit through the warranty period.
It's not retainage, so
No,
I keep saying that.
it's not
You can't-
retainage.
it's not-
Don't
you
say
don't have
retainage.
any money, you don't have, it's just a letter.
Letter of credit.
Minimum of
That's a
10%.
whole different breed when you say.
We have 10% in the development agreement of
Yes,
the
there we go.
retainage, so that's where it's a little messy.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We're gonna go to closed session to briefly discuss the 2017 street assessment project. And we'll open that back up when we're done.
Melanie, do you want it on? No. No.
Using that word briefly there.
I didn't see a long-winded discussion.